to join you this week with this Summer Science Institute. I am sitting here on our 30-acre family farm that sits at the foothills of what's called the Appalachian Mountains. It is bathed by the Kentucky River watershed and is nourished by the soil heavily mineralized with limestone rock. The farm is in an area that initially or originally was inhabited by the Cherokee and the Shawnee peoples. We've had our family here working the land, working this area since the early 1800s, which means it's about 200 years that we've been here as a family. Okay, now, speaking of family, I regard the Greene Scholars that I'm part of the family. And here are a few special reasons why. As you all might know, I have two grandchildren that are part of Greene Scholars. One is JJ and his big sister, Maisha, and they've allowed their mother, you all might know her as Dr. Thomas. We know her as Ayodele, which means joy born in the morning. So we love them dearly. We love JJ, we love Maisha, we love Ayo, we love Jonathan. And because of that, I also love each and every one of you as Greene Scholars. Here's a family photo of the Thomas family. Now, what I want to do next is go to a screen share. If I can, I've been around young folks since the dinosaurs. Got, gray hair, almost no hair. I sometimes get things confused about all this technology, but we're going to try and we'll see what we can do. So we have kind of already talked about the family here. There's JJ on the right, and then there's Maisha, and then next to me is our daughter Ayo. Now, I have been really blessed the last few months to work with an incredible team of parent volunteers who are heading up the planning committee for this Summer Science Institute. It's been an incredible experience. I've enjoyed it. Let's stop a moment and give all the parents on the planning committee, and all the parents that enabled you all to be here today and this week. Let's give the parents, okay, a big hand. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Okay, so, but we've worked together to put together, we think it's going to be just an incredible week. And we've kind of outlined 3 essential outcomes. And that is that we trust that our, what we'll be presenting can provide some seeds of inspiration. They can provide pollens for motivation, and can provide compost for out-of-the-box imagination. Those are our 3 themes, our 3 sensitive outcomes for this week. Now, we think we put together a fantastic week. No, take it back. It's going to be a fun-tastic week, okay? Because we think that you young people in Greene Scholars represent the architects, the visionaries, the Imagineers of a sustainable future. But we recognize that we want you all to grow up to be young adults, not trying to rush you out of high school, don't get me wrong, that can make a difference in this world. We see you as young people who can have this great imagination, if you will, where you all can make come into being what might seem impossible possible. Now, some of you all might be wondering, well, why are we studying this week agriculture? Agriculture isn't science, but we know it is. Well, there are many reasons why it's important for us to have a better understanding of agriculture. And one of the important reasons is because our country, America, USA, was founded upon this taking of land, or this stolen land from indigenous people, was founded upon stolen labor of enslaved Africans to build this country. So we see then that agriculture was part of the foundational injustice in our country. And if we're going to be better understanding today's injustice, we have to have a better understanding and a better way able to work with that kind of founding injustice of our country. That's one of the reasons why it's important to study agriculture. Now, maybe we can, I don't really see the young folks, but can the young folks look at this picture and can put in the chat room or put on the message board who you think this person is? And I'm going to give you some hints. It is not Barack Obama, and it is not Steph Curry, okay? But can you all real quickly put in your chat who you think this young man is? And he was born in the 1800s. He didn't know his mother or father. Born in an enslaved condition. Anyone at all? Well, we're going to make it on this clue a little easier. I'm going to reveal who this is. This is George Washington Carver at about 14 years old. A photo taken around 1879, okay? And he's at an age in this photo about the age of many of you all who are now in high school, 14, 15, 16 years old. But by the age of 12 years old, he had left his home in Diamond, Missouri, and walked 8 miles or 8 or 10 miles to the next city over to go to high school, because back then the high schools were all segregated. So he was already acting in a way that charted his future life. A lot of courage, a lot of ambition, and a desire for education. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This image here kind of demonstrates and shows how Carver spent his early years. Because he was 2 weeks old and almost died, he had whooping cough and respiratory problems. He was frail. Then he was allowed to spend most of his time in the forest, in the garden, studying the plants, the flowers, the trees, the insects, the butterflies, and so forth. These were his books. These flowers and trees represented his books, his material for learning. And this experience in his life of developing this love of the natural world, the love of nature, being able to speak to flowers and trees, guided him the rest of his life. So throughout this week, we're going to have this theme each day of understanding more and more about George Washington Carver, because we want each of you all as Greene Scholars to develop a familiarity, a knowledge, and awareness and inspiration from George Washington Carver. In my view, all Greene Scholars and all young people throughout the world ought to see Carver as an example, as a role model for how to lead your life. Now, some of you all could choose maybe to change your middle name to George or Georgetta, okay? But either way, there will be all kinds of ways throughout the next 3 days where you can, again, begin to embrace and better understand how this image right here, this modern day 21st century image of Carver represents you. Now, Carver's living legacy, we will talk about all week long, but it's relevant today. His life, his contributions are relevant today. There is no other person in American history that better represents someone who's been striving his whole life for a STEM education. Now, what he would call it probably STEAM, because Carver recognized that the arts were critical to your understanding of yourself. Arts were critical to your application, maybe of more scientific and technical kinds of professions. He also believed that agriculture was the foundation of a sustainable community. Carver combined science and religion. He didn't separate those two. Carver believed that the entire community, from young folks who were in preschool at 2 and 3 years old, up to people as old as me, okay, ought to be educated. Carver could relate to peasant farmers and presidents. Carver's life also emphasized Black Lives Matter. He left Iowa State, which on faculty there in 1896. He was the only Black faculty member there, but Booker T. Washington called him to Tuskegee, and Carver spent 47 years at Tuskegee, largely serving the Black farmers, Black sharecroppers throughout the South. He wrote 47 bulletins that he himself illustrated that were geared towards Black farmers, sharecroppers, many who couldn't maybe read or write very well. He gave thousands of speeches to Black farmers and teachers throughout the South and throughout the USA. He also created products that were meant to serve the economic well-being of the Black community. So we could say that Carver's work had 2 points of emphasis. One, he was concerned about Black souls, or as Du Bois called, the souls of Black folk. His concern was also about Black soils, which meant he recognized that you couldn't separate the conditions of Black souls and Black soils. So one of his quotes that he's oftentimes mentioned in books, he said that an injustice to the soil is an injustice to the people or to the farmer, and vice versa. An injustice to the people is also an injustice to the soil. Again, he didn't separate them. Now, this here is an image of one of our gardens when I was working in Detroit. It's a young girl who's at a school, and she was blessed, and this photo shows it so well, to work in a school garden that had this incredibly rich Black soil. Then on her fingers and on her hands, you see this Black soil on her fingers, okay? So we hope that this week, with the garden kits and with your various other interactive activities in the summer, that you will have the pleasure and the blessing as well to get your hands in the Black soil. As we know, we're all made from soil. Also, now here's your first assignment from me. Now, I forgot something in an earlier a slide that was about you all as Black scholars. Now, my grandkids, Maisha and JJ, call me Grandbaba, okay? They call me Grandbaba. So as you're referring to me, if you're speaking to me this week, you all, okay, can also call me Grandbaba. I don't think JJ and Maisha will mind. So I'm Grandbaba Embry. So here's the first assignment from Grandbaba Embry for you all this summer's reading. Please get with your parents, or if you have your own credit card, I don't know, or Amazon account, but go online and order this book called Seed Folks, and included in your summer reading. It's a book about a young woman who uses a garden, a young girl who uses the garden to transform her community. Next assignment from Grandbaba Embry is get with your parents, find some way to stream, download this movie called Dirt the Movie. And you get a better understanding of the importance of dirt for the entire world. It's a beautiful documentary. Again, Dirt the Movie is your second assignment. Now what we're going to do, we're going to spend about 12 minutes watching a couple of short documentaries about George Washington Carver. And then somewhat later, we're going to go into small group sessions and allow you to kind of dissect, talk about, share ideas about these short videos. So get your popcorn out and get your snacks, sit back in a comfortable chair and watch the first part of George Washington Carver.
What do biodiesel fuel and peanut butter have in common? How are crayons and space travel connected? What are soybeans doing in our automobiles? These marvels can all be traced back to the inventive mind of a man who was born a slave, but emerged a master of scientific discovery.
He was able to just look around him and see the raw materials and then see the human need that was out there and bring the two together. And so my own personal view of Carver is that he was a master integrator.
Carver had the most remarkable heart. And that's the thing I think I love the most about his life. I mean, as tremendous of a scientist as he was, he coming out with so many useful products that even today, I don't even know what we would do without. His heart was the best.
Dr. George Washington Carver is well known throughout the world for his revolutionary research, particularly with the peanut. In the early 1900s, he discovered and developed more than 300 new uses for the legume in food products and industrial applications, from face cream to a cure for dandruff, from linoleum flooring to motor oil. Carver saw infinite possibilities in the peanut plant.
He literally inspired other researchers all across this country to take a deeper look at this plant. And of course, I believe that the end of the line has not been reached on what he uncovered.
But Carver's legacy goes far beyond his accomplishments with what was called at the time the lowly goober. He toiled for more than 40 years in his laboratory at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, and is credited with countless breakthroughs in agricultural research.
The impact of that was just astonishing. Carver, through the kind of research he did, was able to really lead the revitalization, really, of a whole region, the southern region.
He really is one of the great American heroes. If there's anyone you're going to learn about, you should learn about, Carver would be one of those people.
George Carver was born into slavery in 1864 in Diamond Grove, Missouri. He was the property of Moses Carver. Towards the end of the Civil War, Southern bushwhackers raided the Carver's farm and kidnapped baby George and his mother.
Moses Carver hired a Union scout named John Bentley to trace after them and try to recover his property. Bentley was able to find baby George, and the mother Mary was never seen again. We do not know what happened.
George was near death when he was found. Moses and his wife took care of him like he was their own child. Too frail to work in the fields, he helped out with the household chores.
It was on this farm that he had spare time to go out and wander in the woods and enjoy nature and become very close to nature. He would look at a briar, he would look at the soil, he would look at the different leaf patterns and question and wonder and ask why. Why are things like this?
George was inspired to paint after visiting a neighbor's home and seeing works of art for the first time.
So he came back, created his own brushes with twigs, and he would take nature's berries and grasses and create colors, an array of colors, and begin to paint.
Young George Carver's inventiveness and hunger for learning compelled him to seek what was impossible for many African Americans of his day: a formal education. Around the age of 11, he left the Carver farm and walked 10 miles to Neosho, Missouri, determined to attend classes at the Lincoln School for Negro Children. He worked for his room and board at the home of Mariah and Andrew Watkins, who lived next door to the school.
The story is that at lunch hour, he would jump the fence between the school and Aunt Mariah's house and go over and help her with her laundry.
Many years later, George was inspired to draw this picture of the school and the Watkins house. George studied hard and got his high school diploma. He applied to Highland College in Kansas and was accepted.
It was a big moment. Then he went to Highland and he showed up and they said, "We didn't know you were black." And they turned him away. It was a huge disappointment.
George didn't give up. In his mid-20s, he applied to Simpson College in Iowa, where blacks were allowed. He was accepted and began taking classes in painting.
His first love was art, and he had a teacher whose name was Etta Budd. She was very dubious about whether a black could make it in art. It was a near impossibility. And she was a little concerned about him being, he was not the first black at Simpson, but he was the only one at the time.
Carver's complex understanding of nature came through in his paintings and drawings at Simpson. Etta Budd noticed this talent and encouraged him to change his course of study to horticulture. Carver took her advice and transferred to the Iowa State College of Agriculture in Ames, where he became the first black student.
He had some trouble with dining room privileges and other things, but he overcame them by his knowledge, which was so conspicuously immense that you didn't have to be in his presence very long to realize that this man knew things.
When Carver completed his bachelor's degree, Iowa State officials offered him a teaching position. The first black student in the college's history was now its first African-American professor. Though Carver was content at Iowa State, in April 1896, he was offered an opportunity that would change his life forever. Booker T. Washington, a leader among the newly freed slave population in the South, invited him to come to Tuskegee Institute, an all-black college in Alabama.
When Booker T. became aware of Carver, that there was an agricultural expert in the country anywhere who was black, that was huge. He was really the only one in the whole country. Booker T. badly wanted someone like that.
At the age of 31, George Washington Carver had found his true calling. He went to Alabama with a mission: to help a once enslaved population find its way to self-sufficiency. Little did he know.
In 1896, Carver left Iowa State to establish the agricultural department at the Tuskegee Institute at the request of its president, Booker T. Washington. While there, he developed successful methods of soil improvement and introduced farmers, particularly poor southern sharecroppers, to new crops like the peanut, sweet potato, and soybean that could be used in crop rotation. These not only could be eaten by the farmers' families, but also gave them another way to make money if their cotton crop ever failed. He even designed a mobile classroom so that he could teach the farmers right on their lands. His efforts and innovations didn't go unnoticed. In addition to testifying before Congress, he consulted about agriculture with 3 American presidents, a crown prince of Sweden, and even Mahatma Gandhi. Carver died on January 5, 1943, and is buried on Tuskegee's campus. His epitaph perfectly describes his life. He could have added fortune to fame, but caring for neither, he found happiness and honor in being helpful to the world.
Okay, now, before we go into small group sessions and talk about these films and the content in them, I want to share just a few other nuggets of information about Carver that can even better establish his great humanity and his contributions that are so relevant today. The film talked about towards the end that he was friends with Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi had sent over one of his associates to meet with Carver, because he'd been reading about this, this African-American scientist who was specializing in introducing various things from the peanut plant, like peanut milk and things like that, and also working with other soybeans and things like that. So Gandhi wanted to understand better how he could supplement his plant-based diet, and he thought Carver could help guide him in that. As they began to correspond and writing back and forth, they also shared a number of similar values. They were both deeply religious. They both worked with either poor peasants, let's say in India, and poor farmers and sharecroppers in the South. They also had this sense of commitment to nonviolence. They shared all those values. Now, so Gandhi sent people over in the late 20s and to establish his friendship with George Washington Carver. Now in the mid 30s, Howard and Kate Thurman and Benjamin Mays, both friends of Carver, announced they were going to be making a trip to the Far East and wanted to stop in India and visit with this person they've been reading about called Mahatma Gandhi and his nonviolent philosophy. So Howard Thurman and his wife Kate and Benjamin Mays made separate trips to go and visit Gandhi in India. At the encouragement of Carver, Carver gave both of them, said, look here is a personal note to my dear friend Mahatma Gandhi. Please, if you're going over there, please take this note to him, and I encourage you all to spend time studying, especially his nonviolent philosophy. Now, Howard and Kate Thurman and Benjamin Mays were good friends with Dr. King's father and mother. As a result, then, Benjamin Mays, who was the chairman of the Department of Religion at Howard University, and Howard and Kate Thurman became Dr. King's mentors, and they're the ones who guided Dr. King to adopt the nonviolent philosophy. So here we see Dr. King in his office. On the wall is a picture of Gandhi. But we don't fully understand why Carver's role in that development hasn't been known and hasn't been talked about more. But Carver had, again, and called it an indirect influence up to Dr. King for Dr. King adopting the nonviolent philosophy. And of course, then Dr. King was, of course, a mentor for many civil rights leaders, including the late Congressman John Lewis. Now, so we're taking Gandhi's words about Carver. Let's look at this gentleman here. You all might recognize this scientist here. Maybe you don't recognize the formula there. Usually you see E=mc², but this is the physicist Albert Einstein, okay, who was a friend of Carver's. And Einstein considered Carver one of the 10 greatest scientists of all time, not just a great African-American scientist, not just a great American scientist, but according to Einstein, one of the greatest scientists of all time. Now, if you disagree with Einstein, and some folks did, here's how he would react. Stick his tongue out, blah, blah, you okay, you don't believe me? So, so I advise you all as Greene Scholars to accept Einstein's imagery and conclusions about Carver. Otherwise, you'll have Einstein licking your tongue at you. Now, Carver was also friends with the inventor Thomas Edison. Edison recognized Carver's great scientific work in laboratories of tearing apart all kinds of materials from peanuts and sweet potatoes and soybeans. And Edison offered Carver a salary of $100,000. Okay, this is back in the late 30s, to come and work in the Edison laboratories. But Carver declined the offer, and he stayed at Tuskegee. Now, oftentimes what's not also known is that Carver was one of the USA's foremost mycologists. That's someone, of course, who studies fungi. Now, this is your third, I think it's your third or fourth assignment from Grandbaba. Get with your parents, download or stream this movie as well, Fantastic Fungi, and you get a better understanding of the importance of fungi to all life on the earth. Now, here are 4 genus species names of fungi named for Carver, because he was always discovering these new species. But after 4 species named for him, he said, hey, enough is enough, okay? And he went on to discover and work with some 60 other species of fungi throughout the South. And Carver, as someone who's always spent time in the forest and the woods, he knew back then that the fungi represented this wood wide web, which means that the fungi are the Earth's internet. Now what we're going to do, we've taken some time to divide up all of you wonderful Greene Scholars today and this week into various breakout groups. Some of you all are peanuts, and some of you all are sweet potatoes, and some are soybeans, and some are flour, and some are fungi. So now we're going to go into small group discussions, and then we will come back, report back, okay, and you all will be able to describe your conversation. So see you all after the small group discussions. I want everyone, okay, because I'm going to be getting up, okay? I encourage everyone to get up and move. You got to be, sore. I'm sore, okay? Move around. Some energy in here.
I got so much space, I got no more land. Pull up on your block in that veggie van. Keep my broccoli local like I always did. Give me a bucket or 2, I sprinkle plant in the streets. I got so much seeds, I got no more land. Pull up on your block in that veggie van. Keep my broccoli local like I always did. It's that eco hip hop, healthy for them care. Yeah. And my veggie so fresh, fit so fresh, garden so clean, growing with the best, rose in my hood, throwing up the X, dirt stay wet, flex, 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 got a pocket full of seeds, what's next? Farmers markets always going how to fresh, look at the way that they eat, look at the way that they eat, you ain't finished your plate, why are you falling asleep? Never too late, be who you needed to be. Meet me out in the wood, ready to plant the tree. Homie, I'm good. Sprout that life. 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 make you think twice when you pull up on the corner store. What's the shelf life of your food? They say, I don't know. Why you eat that processed food? They say, I don't know. Why you never try the fresh juice? They say, I don't know. I got gold grapes with the gold carrots. Rolling tower gardens with romaine lettuce. Bro, them yams ASAP, always for the fan. Plate it up like a chef. Post one for the gram, like. Big green growing, big green, spot that life. 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 Big green growing, spot that life. Big green growing, spot that life. Big green growing, big green, spot that life. Big green growing, big green, spot that life.
Can get it cut off. Let me yeah.
Nice. You got moves, Mr. Embry.
Okay. Hey, it's been a wonderful time with you all.
Thank you.
Closing it out. Emphasizing once again, young folks, DJ Kavem has some great videos on the web. Look him up. Our resource page has the links. But you see here is an image of how DJ Kavem and you all can apply Carver's legacy and principles in a whole variety of ways in your life. I love you all much.
Thank you, Mr. Embry. Thank you so much for the hard work. Everybody else, please stay. Don't leave. Bye, Mr. Embry. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Bye now.